All right. Hello and welcome to another YAI conversation with a legislator. My name is Robert Cardona, and I have been a YAI self advocate for the last 30 years that I've been involved with the YAI organization. I also currently am living in Brooklyn under an organization called Job Path. I have my own apartment under the organization called Job Path. I've been living in the apartment now for 17 years, and Job Path is an organization that helps individuals find apartments and employment. I'm in their independent living apartment. And also, one of my hobbies that I like to do in my spare time is doing Facebook on my computer and also Instagram, basically all the technology stuff, social media, things like that. That's what I like to do in my spare time. And also hosting parties with my friends, and also basically into watching TV, basically in talking with my friends on the phone. So the large social network of friends I have, basically. Okay. Okay. Okay, and
following me.
Okay, sorry. And here with us today is New York State Assemblymember Yuh-Line Niou, and she represents the parts of Lower Manhattan, and she has spoken publicly about her experiences as a legislator on the autism spectrum. Please welcome Assemblymember Yuh-Line Niou. Yay.
Thank you, Robert.
Okay. Thanks for being here, Assemblymember Yuh-Line Niou, and I have some questions for you. Number one, what is your personal experience on the autism spectrum?
So, I think that it's interesting when folks are talking about the spectrum because, we talk about neurodiversity a lot amongst, advocates, amongst folks who are learning more about what it is that we're experiencing. And, it's interesting that you were talking about social media, because a lot of times when we're talking about, some of the TikToks and some of the cool, Twitter groups, and we have a lot of community online, and people are now seeing how diverse the spectrum is, really. And I think that I hear a lot about what the difference is for somebody who's on the spectrum, who's a girl and a boy, and different things that are much more textbook, autism spectrum, the way that they write things, like it's so much harder apparently to, even be diagnosed as a girl because of the things that, different doctors would say, oh, well, this is, what being on the spectrum looks like. These are the checklists, but it's different. Right. It shows up in different people. And so I think that it's very interesting how we're learning more and more about, just each other in general. And, being in these different groups is also helping me to not feel so alone in some.
Right, and not to feel like you're left out in the field or whatever, and then just to have more experience, especially experiences that you've had.
Exactly. And I'm hearing that a lot of people have very similar experiences that I have, in the sense that, for me personally, I realize that a lot of things that a lot of people think are very hard, I find them quite easy. And a lot of things,
they're a lot easier than a lot of people can imagine.
Yeah. And then a lot of things that other people just assume people should know or are just easy things to do, I find really hard. So it's not necessarily.
It's not hard as it seems, right?
Yeah. I had a hard time learning how to tie my shoes, for example. And I still don't wear shoes with laces as a preference.
Oh my God.
But at the same time, I was playing Chopin at 7, it didn't, faze me. But there's a lot of different things when you're talking about, being on the spectrum, but I think of it as kind of a superpower in my job, right? I'm probably one of the few people who can read all of the bills that I'm voting on as I'm doing it, and I read really fast, I comprehend really fast. And I think that there's a
Right.
lot of different things that my hyper focus has lent me almost like a superpower for. So you probably know exactly what I'm talking
I
about.
know. I've been in the organizations that I've been involved in for a very long time, so I know pretty much, what you've accomplished. I've accomplished quite a bit in my life as well. So
Yeah, I'm sure.
okay.
And so I think that a lot of times for me, I just don't, I mean, I think that, it's by using the phrase like the word neurodiversity and the way that we talk about things, it's awesome to be able to even have that like
Right.
in our language for describing some of our experiences, because, it just means that we all just think differently, which
Right.
is everyone.
Yeah, yeah. Everybody has different levels of disability. Everybody has different stages. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay. All right. Question number 2. What is your personal experience on the autism spectrum?
Oh, that was
Yeah.
the one that we were answering.
That's what we was. Oh my God. That was. Oh no. Oh my goodness. Oh my God. Oh, I'm sorry. We're recording. Oh, the challenges
Challenges.
running and running for and holding office as someone with autism, and how have you met them?
So, like I said, I mean, I think that a lot of times I find it more as a strength rather than a weakness. And so I don't really see, but strengths are your weaknesses are your strengths. And
Thanks,
so,
thanks, yeah.
yeah, a lot of times, for me, that hyper focus that I was talking about, because I'm so focused on one thing, I tend to zone in on it. And
Yeah.
that is my one thing. And then, I have a lot of really amazing people around me who are, my staff, who are really supportive and helping me to kind of like get
Right.
pulled back out a little bit to kind of, get uh,
Mind focus.
my mind like unfocused in some ways,
Okay, okay,
because
okay,
it's so
okay.
easy for me to get hyper focused on something
Okay.
and then, really go in and try to problem solve something, right? And so when I see an issue, I tend to really be able to see the causes and effects of things, because that's just the way my thinking is, right?
Okay.
I mean, it starts with people too, right? So when I was younger, I had a really difficult time kind of interacting with my peers in, not understanding what, they were trying to, they were giving off cues that I didn't understand.
Oh,
So I would look and watch to see how other people made friends, and then kind of try to understand and take apart,
right.
layer by layer, like, oh, their eyebrows do this, their eyes do this, their mouths do this,
Yeah,
the way that they
the facial expressions.
facial expressions. Yeah, I had to kind of understand a little bit better. And so then I realized, wow, these things have these causes and these things have these effects. And so I would just kind of understand better. And then that's how I would be able to understand what somebody was trying to, um, you know, expressed to me, right?
Right.
Not just with the words and taking things very literally, because I still do sometimes, not intentionally, especially when it comes to social media or
Right.
phone texts, or
Okay. Okay.
on the phone, I can't see what's happening with their faces. And but like I still, try to understand, this is the cause, this is the
Yeah.
effect. And then because of that, I also have that challenge when it comes to, policy, because I'm always looking at the layers of things. And instead of just like looking at the politics of something, maybe somebody doesn't like somebody, I try to understand that, but I'm just looking at the policy all the time, and thinking about, the big problem. How are these things able to solve these problems, and why it is that it would be the best solution for the problem at
Right. Right.
hand? And so, so it's kind of a strength. It's also kind of a weakness. It's a kind of a challenge, but it's also something that I think is also helps to challenge others, right? Because I think, because I'm so specific about what it is that I think would solve a problem, and they can also understand why I think that way.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think that it's more about communication than anything. And then because,
Communication skills.
communication.
Communication skills. Yeah.
Yeah, and because with communication, you have to understand, like, this way of like talking to somebody, you can help to express a little bit better how your idea works. It makes it so that
Right.
um, it's a lot easier. And so
Yeah.
there's challenges on all these different levels, from the understanding where other people are at part, and then understanding then like where the policy like answers and the political answers are different maybe, and then also understanding how to communicate why your policy proposals
Okay.
work and how and why they should care about that.
Okay. Okay. Um, Question number three: is the state considering additional support for employment opportunities for people who have IDD?
I mean, this is definitely something that the state like obviously needs to explore and set up specific tailored programs. I think instead of, just trying to shove folks into the existing programs, right? Like not
Right.
everybody is on the spectrum,
Yeah.
and I
Okay.
know that there are particular programs for, but you have to be diagnosed, for example, in school with
Right.
being on the autism spectrum. But if you're not on the autism spectrum, and you get diagnosed as somebody on the autism spectrum, you aren't going to get the tools that
Right.
you need specifically. And then you're not going to get the benefits that you should be getting.
Right.
And you're not going to get the support that you need to be having,
Mhm.
depending on your specific
Neat.
IDD. Yeah.
Yeah, and
And
also,
so I think,
yeah,
yeah,
the level of support you need, the services, and
it
I
could
think,
be very different from
yeah,
person to person to person. And that's what when we're talking about neurodiversity, that's something that we really need to also be
yeah,
considering when it comes to employment opportunities for folks. And the state recently actually passed legislation that includes providing an ombudsman for the Office of the Independent Intellectual and Developmental Disability.
okay,
So for the Office of the IIDD, that's
okay,
what they call it, I guess, Office of IIDD. And so in addition to that, the state actually also passed legislation again for the Office for the Advocate of People with Disabilities, which would provide a voice, I believe, to a lot of the folks with IDDs. And, this was a bill that took a lot of time because it was vetoed previously by the governor. And so, there's folks in the community that have been advocating for this, and these bills are really vital in creating an agency level platform to really inform and better inform how we can create new programs that actually support folks, while also supplementing existing programs right now, because we obviously need a lot more resources.
right, especially not so much just rehabilitation, but supported employment or basically paid employment, I would say as well, because I know a lot of the day have programs. I think some of them are shutting down now, not just due to the COVID situation, but from what I understand, because I did a lot of day have and volunteer before I got all the paid employment jobs. A lot of the day habilitations are shutting down, basically due to lack of funding and
Yes.
yeah, yeah,
And that's what we were talking about. We need to fund existing programs. We also need
yeah,
to be expanding, like instead of plugging people into, it's like square peg, round hole. Like, we shouldn't be like shoving people into programs that aren't working for them. Like we need to
right,
be building programs that will be like flexible, but also helping to get the support network for people in the way that they need to be supported, not just only providing this kind of support and then everything else you got to do for yourself,
right, right, right. Mm, okay, okay.
Does that make
Yeah, that
sense?
makes a lot of sense. Yeah, because yeah, because they shouldn't just be shoved into one program from it. It should be the level of support they want, not just what they need, what they want to get.
Correct.
Yeah, correct. Many people with IDD are interested in independent housing, like what I have. How can the state help in that particular situation?
Yeah, I mean, I firmly believe that housing is a human right, and I've talked about this at length. And it should not be different for anyone that we allow folks to have an ability to have a place to live, right?
Right.
And in addition to the ombudsman program and the Office for the Advocate of People with Disabilities, the state also actually passed adjustments for retroactive benefits for DRE and SCRE. So
Okay.
DRE is specifically for folks with disabilities, right? And it's a disability rent increase exemption. So that means that if you have, uh, a particular disability that makes it so that you can apply for DRE. These programs can help you to get rental assistance, right? And
Okay.
then moving forward, we need to explore, dedicated funding and resources specifically to create full support independent housing services. And, that's the kind of that's the kind of support that our state's been needing to have for so many different individuals, and not just
Right.
for folks with, with IDD, but also with, specific to a lot of our different communities, seniors and like folks who, obviously when they stay in our districts and when they stay in our neighborhoods, they're actually, adding so much to our
Yeah.
community, right?
Yeah.
And then I
Yeah.
think that
Go ahead. Go ahead.
no, I think that housing needs, all housing needs to be accessible, affordable, and
Yeah.
provide a full breadth of, different kinds of things that
Mhm.
every individual deserves to have. But when we're talking about, a lot of the resources that our state could provide, we
Mhm.
should be able to also provide a full breadth of
All right.
caregiver services
All
if
right.
they're desired, right? Whether it's for seniors, whether it's for folks with IDD, or for folks who have mental health needs, or
Right.
folks who have different kinds of experiences, and they need a little bit of help. Like, I don't think that this is something that's just, totally beyond our reach. I
Right.
don't think that that's something that should be impossible.
Right. Because excuse me, because I have friends who are in 24-hour group homes, and well, obviously they do need a lot of support, and they have roommates. Of course, they actually have staff living in the apartments that are like watching over them, and they're always telling me, Robert, we want to get our own apartment, we want to get their own place like what you have. Even people that are living with their families, who some of them who do have autism spectrum disorder, and people who aren't, who don't have the disorder, autism disorder. I'm like, I really hope one day you guys can get your own apartment, but it's not easy. Not easy to get to that, to that situation. I mean, it was very hard for me to get my own apartment. Like when
Yeah.
it took me, I would say 5 years. It took more than 5 years for me to get out of the situation I was in, like 20, 25 years ago. It took me like a
Well,
long time. It's a waiting period, and it's a waiting process, and that waiting process is a lengthy period. Yeah, it's
and Robert, I would love to be able to hear about what your process is like if you were willing to share.
oh yeah, I'll share it. Oh yeah, in terms of what I went through, 25 years ago, I had to wait 5 or more years to get my apartment in the Bronx, which was my first apartment in Job Path. I lived with a roommate. Actually, I wasn't living by myself.
Mm.
But to get that apartment, I waited excess amount of years, and I never thought I was going to get that placement. But lo and behold, 20 years ago, I finally got the apartment after waiting centuries. Practically, I thought it was going to be centuries,
Is
but
it because there were so few apartments that were able to match the program, or is it because of like lack of space and lack of funding for space, or is it because of paperwork or red tape that you had to go through?
it was a lot of red tape, basically, from the situations that I was in,
Hmm.
family situations, and also the living conditions that I was under. Because um, I grew up in Bay Ridge, Brooklyn, with my family members, my maternal grandparents, and both of my sisters. Unfortunately, my maternal grandparents are now deceased, and both of my sisters I am no longer in contact with. So it's basically me now looking out for myself. I'm my own self guardian, as anybody would put it. Mainly people in the organizations I'm under, they know all about what I went through. But now I have friends who are now my extended family, and Job Path, YI, they're my family. I really should say now. And I do have a lot of parents that I know through the organizations, YI and Job Path. They're my family as well. So
Mm.
I'm very blessed and, lucky for that. But I went through a lot of red tape. to get to where I'm at now, and it was not easy. It was not an easy road, to get to where I'm at. It was, went through a lot of difficult stages in my life, where I thought I wasn't gonna make it, but lo and behold.
And it's even harder, I think, a lot of times when it's like for us within our different communities, right? Because you're a person of color, I'm a person of color. I think that it's a lot harder when it comes to that fear. Like I have a friend who literally told me how afraid he is for his son, to, for example, to get arrested because of just because he's on the spectrum, and if he's touched or if somebody is to have like a triggering behavior towards him, he will like throw a fit or like will be very, very stressed out, right? And so somebody could, that's like one of his biggest fears, that somebody might arrest him or shoot him, because we've been seeing a lot of the police violence right now on the streets.
Yeah, there's a lot going on, especially with the Black Lives Matter situation and all, and with everything going on in the world. Yeah, it's like, I mean, you can't really trust anybody, not even on the subways now. I mean, there's all this crime going on. It's really, it's not, the world is not really the safest. Not even New York City, anywhere. You can go any borough now. It's not really, times are not right like when I was coming up. And I just turned 51 yesterday. You know what I mean?
Oh, congratulations! Happy birthday!
Yeah.
Happy birthday! I also am a July kid. I turned 38 on the 15th.
Oh, happy belated to you too. But go ahead.
I was gonna ask you, you talked about your family. So are you married? Do you have kids?
Oh, I'm not married, but I'm kind of trying to. Well, actually, I am seeing somebody, kind of. I mean, there is somebody. Yeah. Somebody I went to high school with years ago. I'm in touch with a lot of people I went to high school with also. I actually was mainstreaming to a regular high school in Fort Greene, Brooklyn. I was not in special education classes. My maternal grandmother wanted me in regular education school. She didn't want me in special education classes. But I did graduate regular high school diploma Saturday, June 4th, 1988. I remember the year and everything. But wow. Yeah, I remember it. Yeah. And I am in a relationship with somebody I went to high school with, proud to say. And I've known her since 1987. Very nice girl. We speak on the phone every day. And I've known her since we were 17 years old. Her name is Rashana Dunnings. I love her to death. I love her so much.
That's adorable.
Yeah, she's wonderful. She's wonderful.
So you're thinking about one day getting married?
Yes, thinking about getting married one day. We've talked about it for years. We talked about it especially this past year alone. And I'm going to make that move. Definitely gonna make that move.
Does she know? Is that like, are we broadcasting it on this recording right now?
Yeah, on this recording right now. Yes, Shauna, we're gonna get married. Will you marry me, please?
Oh, well, we better not let Scott play this anytime before you ask.
No, let off social media. No. But seriously, I've been knowing her. Oh, we can edit. Oh, we gotta edit this out. I see already, Scott. Okay. Well,
Scott.
Okay, we got the pictures. Okay. Yeah. Okay.
So, let's go back to the legislation really quick.
Okay. Go. I have another question.
No.
Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
All right. Many people with IDD have extra considerations to think about when they want to get married, speaking of marriage, we were talking about that, and have children.
Mm-hmm.
Have you had any of these experiences, and how can the state help perhaps with marriage equality for people with disabilities?
Yeah, I mean, I think that what you were talking about with housing, a lot of the same things happen when it's talking about care, when it's talking about when folks are even able to go to the hospital with somebody,
Right,
especially now, like with COVID and everything, like people are talking about a lot of these different things that are needed to be thought about, but we don't have in the legislature. We have some folks who are parents.
yeah,
We have some, like there's a couple of us, like me and a couple of other folks who have visible or invisible disabilities.
okay.
And there are folks you know, who never have thought about, most of the people in the legislature have never once thought about looking at every single day living through the lens of somebody with a disability at
The
all.
disability, right, okay.
Right. And so I think a lot of times it's really about helping folks to have that story, have that experience, have that understanding of what people are going through every single day. People need to hear from you, Robert, and people need to hear about like how much you love your girlfriend and like
Yeah,
how much you think like, about getting married and like wanting to have that opportunity as well because this isn't like some small love. This is somebody you've
yes,
known since high school.
yes, high school,
And I
yeah.
yeah, and I think that this is like, it's not something you haven't thought about and considered so
Right. Mhm.
deeply, and I think that this is why it's so important for us to, be cognizant of what folks are going through and then also understand that there should be, case by case basis of like, understanding and having a much more broad understanding of how folks who are neurodiverse can have all kinds of range of ability as well. I think that a lot of times there's like a lot of parents, like some folks who are parents within the legislature of
Yeah,
kids with disabilities, and that's
right.
one of the things that I think is so awesome. I think, when
Hmm.
we have parents, and at the same time, there's also, I think, a little bit of an innate fear
Yeah,
when folks are seeing like, oh, well, my kid sometimes gets taken advantage of, like my
right,
kid, uh, yeah, was sexually assaulted or sexually harassed, and like, is there an ability um, for them to be able to make a good judgment or make a decision that is life changing.
that will affect the rest of their lives, basically.
Right. And I understand that fear, but I also think that it's so important to know that, you know, you know, I would just want any, I don't think that I have any impairment in thinking like about who I love or who I care about,
Right, right.
etc. You know what I mean? And who I want to spend the rest of my life with. But I do think that there is a instinctive protection that some parents have on why they would be more
Over,
inclined to put up barriers
and
against
also overprotective because there are a lot of parents who sometimes they're afraid to let go of their children because I mean, sometimes there are parents who are overprotective. They don't want their children to like not so much grow up, but they're afraid, they might, like you were saying, sexually assaulted or God forbid raped. Because you don't know who to trust these days. You really don't know who to trust. There's a lot of not just attackers out there, but there's predators also. You have to really be careful because if you're gonna like pair people up, if people are gonna be in relationships, you have to make sure not only they're age appropriate, but they're the same age, dating or whatever. Because you can't.
well, I mean, even if there is an age difference, I think that there are things that are legal and things that are illegal, and I think that there are things that people also have to understand, like like there's mental capacity and age
Yeah,
too, right? And I think
yeah,
like there's a lot of that too and
yeah,
maturity. And I think that for myself, I was somebody who experienced a very traumatizing experience in high school. I was sexually assaulted by my teacher,
Oh my
and I think that a
God.
lot of times, my parents, they don't think of it as something that happened to me because of my having a disability or anything, but I definitely, can understand where parents are coming from when thinking about, the possibility of somebody taking advantage of their child.
Yeah.
And I
Well,
think that, there's a lot of different circumstances, but I think that, we have to fight to make sure that
yeah.
there is autonomy, and that there's a want for folks to be able to make autonomous decisions. But I think it also you know take into we have to take into consideration the level of um, need and care, and make sure that people cannot take advantage of somebody.
Right.
I think
Because
there's a lot of care that's needed there, for
yeah,
sure.
because I was sexually assaulted by a staff from my program. This was like 15 years ago.
Oh my God, I'm
They,
sorry, Rob.
yeah, I was. I was. I the job path is already aware of it. They know about it. The organization is already, I'm not ashamed to talk about it. It did happen 15 years ago. The program is already aware of it. The state knows about it, and I've gotten over it, but it's not easy to forget about it. And it was a very traumatizing experience, and yeah, that's why it's sometimes, a lot of times now, it's hard for me to trust when staff come in the apartment. Well, to meet new staff. I mean, I'm trying, like, to when new staff are introduced to me, I'm actually, asking them, what they're all about, what basically I'm asking what they're basically what their methods are all about, because after that horrible experience I had 15 years ago, I mean, I'm healing here by myself. I don't You don't know who's coming in your apartment now, and even now with all these terrorist attackers, no, I don't know who to trust anymore. It's like, it's a lack of trust and ethnicity, and especially with me and with the bad experiences I had with my family. Like, when my sister, 30 years ago, and next month it'll be 30 years, unfortunately, she did try to commit me to a hospital. Yes, she did. And 30 years, this was in 1995. I have to put this in the recording. I'm sorry. It's going to be hard, but she did take away my house keys, and she did lock me in my apartment in Manhattan for a year. For a year. You want to talk about individuals with disabilities who are treated like animals? I was, by my own family. I was treated horribly, which is why my sister's in Arizona.
Sorry.
My sister's currently in Arizona now, and no contact at all. She washed her hands with me, and she got away with all these horrible acts. Never got arrested, and yeah,
So sorry, Robert.
yeah. And I feel sorry for anybody who's gone through the same thing. That's why I'm fighting for individuals with disabilities, that they've gone through the same thing I went through. I mean, I literally almost died in that apartment in Manhattan. The gates were locked. It was, in summer of 1995. It was like 28 years ago this month. Skinny, 80 pounds. All right. Locked in that apartment. The gates were locked 100 degrees. Fainted in that bathroom, in the bathtub. Horrible. Neighbors wanted,
Sorry.
yeah,
Sounds very traumatizing.
yeah. But I'm just
People
hoping.
need to, like, understand how many times, like, situations are really harmful and traumatizing, and it's a
Yeah,
possibility that somebody um wants to harm somebody, but it's also could happen to anyone, you know what I mean? It's not just like
they
it's
want to do it to their own family members who have
yeah,
disabilities. They just want to lock them up like that. It happened to me.
terrible. It's terrifying.
Yeah,
And
terrifying.
you're very independent and able, whereas, like, I think, like, that's even more terrifying when it comes to,
your own relative.
They trying to take away your independence and like your ability to fend for yourself. Like that's very frightening.
It was frightening for me, Louis. I'm telling you, it was a horrible experience, and I'm just, yeah, it really is. I mean, it was so horrible. I would be dead today had it not been for job path, YAI, and all my friends getting me out of all those horrible experiences. I would be dead. You would not be seeing me speaking in front of you right now. I'm telling you. I was looking so bad.
Well, I'm glad you're here with us now. I'm glad you have a romantic relationship. I'm glad you just celebrated your birthday.
Yay! I'm still here, period. I'm a surviving you. I'm a survivor. So seriously, you, I'm a survivor. I've been through so much. It's amazing how I'm sitting in front of you right now. I've been through so much. It's amazing. Horrible experiences I went through. It's sad. It's really sad. I mean, how can relatives do this to a loved one, especially an individual with a disability?
Yeah. Well, right now, there is a bill that Tom Abenanti, who's right now, there's also our speaker, just formed a new committee for the legislature that is going to have its own chair and everything, that has its own chair and everything. His name is Tom Abenanti, but it's a chair that's in a committee that specifies on making legislation to actually help folks with disabilities. So it's actually a really huge development within the legislature. And one of the bills that Tom Abenanti actually sponsors, it establishes a pilot program to create an assistance hotline.
Okay.
For folks with any IDD or any complex behavioral needs. And I think that it's really, I mean, in your situation, for example, if that was something that could have been made back then.
This could also help too.
What's that?
This is, let me see if I can get this a little closer. This abuse hotline number.
Oh, amazing.
Yes, I came prepared. You trust me.
I love it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Anybody, if any of you guys in group homes, residences, or people living with their families are going through a situation, I came prepared with this hotline number. It's an abuse hotline number. Any of you guys are going through these situations, you just jot down this number, take a picture of it on your cell, jot it down, everyone. Very serious. You guys are going through an abusive situation like what I went through, get this number immediately. Don't be afraid to speak up, everybody, please.
Sit closer to the camera.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. I'm sorry. Can you guys see that?
I can see it better now. Yes.
Oh, good.
Yeah. You can have it. Yeah, and I'm sure Scott will do something fancy. Or look up the Justice Center.
The Justice Center. Yes, everybody. This is the Justice Center number. And if any of you guys in group homes, residences, or family members, if you guys think or you are being abused, sexually being abused, raped, or beaten up by you think is a loved one, jot this number down immediately. Look up even online or Facebook or whatever. This is the number to jot down immediately. I'm serious.
There's also 2 more bills that Tom has. One of them I'm still I'm not there yet on it because I think that there are some things about it that I find problematic. Mm-hmm. One of them is to establish an electronic monitoring program for kids with autism or other developmental disabilities, and to create a statewide program that provides parents of children with autism spectrum disorder or other developmental disabilities with an electronic monitoring device that geographically locates their children. I find it I mean, I know that there are children who, who have gotten lost or have been taken or have wandered off. I think that there's, I know for, one of my, constituents had a son who is very, very attracted to water and always wants to be near water. It's soothing, right? But also it's a little dangerous because he's, he's somebody who he is still a little bit nonverbal when it comes to his needs. And so I think like I understand where this is coming from the chair, but I also find it a little concerning for folks who, if you're just on the spectrum and have a lot of independence and autonomy, I don't feel like that's also something that's right for people to have like this monitoring device on you. It's almost like you were talking about earlier about, being in a prison in your own home,
Yeah, or felt like you're trapped in a well. Let's say, I mean, come on, when the incident in 1995 happened to me, I was in that house for a year, could not get out at all, could not go anywhere. I was trapped in that house for a year. My family got away with that incident, and in what was it in what is it? Scott's coming on. I think we have to wrap up. Okay.
That's okay. No,
Oh,
finish your thought, Robert.
okay.
And
Okay, let me finish up. Yeah. When the incident happened in 1995, yeah, I was not just a prisoner in my home. I felt like I was in a jail cell. I'm serious. I really did. I felt like I was in a jail cell and I couldn't get out. I felt like I was in an institution. Horrible. Never thought I was going to get out of that situation.
yeah, and I think like that is also why it's so important for folks to understand that, being um somebody who has any kind of diagnosed disability. I always say disability because I sometimes, like I said, I find like my being on the spectrum is actually like a superpower. I don't feel like it's a disability. It's actually a way of having a hyper ability. But I also think that, folks who, um, you know, have no understanding or lens of what it is like to for example even be dyslexic or
Right.
have um, you know uh, a anxiety disorder or to have like some kind of being wanting to have some independence even with somebody who's got Down syndrome or somebody who has like me, like being on the autism spectrum disorder. Like if you don't have a
Yeah.
lens to operate from, it's really hard to make legislation that makes sense,
Mhm.
to that is actually considerate of every single aspect. And so I think like it's really interesting to actually just fight to actually have that lens and that representation. But also, I think it's really important for us to be able to have the discussion about, having case by case basis, models that are going to help to be able to deliver services in a way that actually targets individuals' specific needs. And I think that it is hard to do that. I know that it's expensive to do that, but it's, I think what our state should do, you know? I
Okay.
think that it's crucial. And, I think, if we find it to be, um, you know, uh, I guess um, an essential part of, I guess, our community in this in
Mhm.
the larger wider way of like being able to enrich one another's lives. I mean I'm somebody who's very supportive. Like I helped to get the budget doubled and then doubled again for our NORC programs, and NORC is our naturally occurring retirement communities, right? Like I personally think that our seniors and like in Chinese culture we always obviously
Yeah.
very much revere our elders, right? And I think that having folks who are different generations in one family, it's so
Okay.
enriching. It's so enriching in our overall community. And I think like having folks all along the neurodiversity spectrum, like that is also enriching, and it also provides us with a lens, right? Because I like to say this out loud, but people who um, have no lens right now, you know, it's only temporary, because every single one of us, even if we are able-bodied or able, you know, to have like certain kinds of abilities, like able in any way, like it's only temporary.
Right.
It all goes away with time, you know.
Okay.
And so the older you get, you know, and like we lose ability day after
Right.
day after day for as long as you live, right? And so I
Right.
think that people don't realize that even if you're not trying to see through that lens now, you're going to be forced to see through that lens later. And
Right.
so you should be building programs to help yourself, you know? Like
Right.
we should be all thinking about how we're all only temporarily able-bodied. We're all only temporarily, you know, able in all of the temporary ways that we are able, right? Because and it's coming from a place of privilege to even be able to
Right.
think that, you know, that everybody's gonna be able to climb these stairs to the subway. Like it's only like it's a coming from a place of privilege to like think that, wow, like, you know, I'm gonna be able to make this choice to help myself in this way ever, you know, because
Right.
one day that decision might be taken away from you.
Hmm.
And do you want that to be taken away from you?
Oh,
Like,
I never know.
right? And that's why I try to let folks understand, like, that's the lens that we should be looking through, that every single person is only temporarily able in whatever way that they are given privilege of being able in at the current moment.
Right. Right.
So
Okay.
I
Well.
guess with that, you know, I guess maybe we should wrap it up.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you so much, Assembly Member, for your time today.
Sure.
This was a great conversation. And for those of you who are watching, I would like for you to help us take a step further in this. Please go to our website, yi.org/advocate, to find out ways for you guys all to get involved and help our cause. Thank you all for watching and participating. Thank you.